Fight and Talk back again, and today I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Ben Ellis ahead of his fight against Kingsley Crawford in exactly 1 week's time on Cage Warriors 115. Ben, first things first, thanks for taking some time out to talk to us tonight. I mean, what a fight for you and what a show to be part of on the Trilogy.
Hi mate, thank you for having me on. Yeah, buzzing for it, really looking forward. Like we said, talking off camera earlier, it's just such a great opportunity to jump the queue a little bit. We're only 2-0. I think I probably would have had to wait 2 or 3 more fights before fighting someone who's 5-2 or 6-0, whatever. So yeah, happy days. Beat him up, jump the queue, can't fault it.
Yeah, you're saying there as well, you are only 2-0, and I mean, what, your cage time's just over 5 minutes, I think, since you've turned professional.
Just about, yeah.
There's a lot of hype going into this one surrounding you, and I think it's fair to say Kingsley's definitely the toughest opponent that you've had to date. What sort of fight are you expecting from him, and was it a no-brainer when you get offered a name like Kingsley Crawford just to jump at the opportunity?
Yeah, no brainer at all. I mean, I think that's the purpose of amateur careers. Like, he's definitely the toughest test at pro, but maybe not as amateur. Like any promoter I was involved with an amateur will tell you, I literally was saying I'd fight on any show. The only thing I was insisting on, a person would have to be in the top, say, 15 or top 20 on Tapology. And that just went on and on, struggling for amateur matchups until eventually went pro. So although it's one of the tougher matchups at pro, it's probably not my toughest in general. And I think I'll dominate him. Every fight I've had so far, I've dominated pretty much everyone. Say in 10 fights total, 8 amateur, 2 pro, I've lost 1 round. So yeah, it's do the same thing to him.
You mentioned, promotions. I mean, Cage Warriors sort of had their eye on you from day one. I think I'm right in saying was it your first amateur fight was on a Cage Warriors show? Of course, you were on Bout as well. But what's that been like for you as a young fighter from like the first time you made the walk to be involved with one of the biggest promotions in Europe?
To be honest, it's not really something that I thought about or think about. I mean, obviously, I'm chuffed to be signed exclusively to Cage Warriors now, but a cage is a cage. Just as long as I get to fight someone, then I'm pretty happy. But yeah, I am chuffed to be part of the Trilogy, to be fair.
If you go back as well and look at your amateur career, there was a lot of decision victories you had. I mean, since you've turned pro, you've not seen the second round. What sort of changed as you as a mixed martial artist that seen the change from amateur to pro from these longer fights to just in there, job done, out?
See, I put a lot of pressure on people, but a lot of it's patient pressure, and I don't rush for anyone. That's why I don't tend to make a lot of mistakes. And I think when it was a 3-minute round, those big amateur gloves can get tied up quite easy. And I think, say I took 2 minutes something to get somebody in a really compromised position, they can almost see the finish line at the end of the round. So they hang on, they tie up a glove. Whereas when it's 5 minutes, they don't have that luxury. And then obviously the small gloves as well. You can do a lot of damage in small gloves compared to amateur gloves. They're literally half the size.
I mean, sorry, go on.
Oh no, sorry, you go, mate.
You mentioned them small gloves and a lot of damage. I mean, last time out, it was an unbelievable knockout. I must admit, I hadn't seen it, and when Mason Jones mentioned it when I spoke to him, it was the first thing I went and did after we finished the interview. That must have been an unbelievable feeling for you to secure such a unique finish in a fight.
To be honest, and I'm not just saying it, to me, it was water off a duck's back. I knocked him out. I've knocked plenty of people out before, and I didn't think anything of it. It wasn't until everybody else started making a big thing of it that I kind of went with the bandwagon a little bit. But it's a position I got a lot of confidence in. I think if I'm in any position remotely similar to that, I'm going to do that to a lot of people. I don't know whether that's a body type thing or if it's a skill thing or a weight distribution thing, but I know I can generate a lot of power from it.
I mean, we can't ignore the fact that even Cage Warriors themselves have called you the Welsh Khabib. It's not a bad comparison to have, is it?
It's funny, mate. Like I say, some of the boys say that just because like a lot of the pressure that I bring. Say in particular when it comes to fighting on the ground, top pressure, like riding techniques. So they sort of just mess about saying about being the Welsh Khabib, and then yeah, it caught on a little bit.
One thing I've noticed as well, especially in these pro fights, and it's something that I found really interesting. You're not a one that when you first come out, the touch of gloves, you'd rather not do that. Where does that sort of stem from? Is that a rather you're in the zone while that cage door's shut, and once the fight's over, you can have that sort of respect, or?
It's a combination of two things. So first off, we're contracted to fight for 3 fights. So I'm not willing to waste 1 second of that touching gloves. Like, there's all the time in the world to show respect after the fight, touch gloves, hug, whatever, and I'm fine with that. Likewise, if he wants to shake hands at the weigh-in, I'm fine with that as well. But then also, like, there's so many examples in fights of somebody goes to offer a glove and then somebody else strikes. Like, say, you mentioned Mason. Like, Mason said it happened in one of his judo fights. He went on to touch gloves and the guy threw him. So, yeah, just playing it safe, and for the fact I'd rather not. I won't ever offer to touch gloves.
There's one thing Aaron Khalid mentioned when we spoke to him a few weeks ago about you talking to your opponents when you're in the cage. Can we expect more of the same come next Friday?
I don't know, mate. Honestly, it's so weird because, like, when as a person, I'm probably quite quiet. So I was training at the mat. None of them had ever seen me in a fight, although I'd had a lot of boxing fights up to that point. So they just knew me as the quiet guy who gets on with it. And then I'm on top of this guy just basically hammering him with death threats. And Liu Long just turned around after the fight and was just like, where on earth did that come from, you absolute psycho? So, yeah, since then I've been getting teased about that. It's one of those things. If like I feel like doing it, I'll do it. And if I don't, I won't. It's not something that I plan. It's just something that's coming. The words are coming out of my mouth before I've even thought about it. So sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. A lot of it depends on what I feel like the other guy is doing, the way he's acting.
It's quite funny you mention that as well, because I mean, what you've just said, Lou said something very similar to what Aaron said to us as well when he came on that. You were very quiet, and the second you got in there, it was just like a different person.
Yeah, same. When it's time to fight, it's time to fight, and then it is a different person at that point.
You mentioned them two lads, of course, and the mat. What's the atmosphere like around there at the minute? I know there's talk of Liu Long's opponent. There's nothing confirmed officially yet. Of course, you've got Aaron Khalid as well, fighting Big Mick Stanton, welcoming him back down to the welterweight division. The vibe must be unreal, is it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, fair play to Liu, leading from the front as always. And then, obviously, me and Aaron trying to follow in his footsteps. So, due to the COVID restrictions, it's just 3 of us preparing for fights at the minute. But fair play to the rest of the boys. I'll try not to name anyone, just because you know what it's like. You shout at 1 or 2 of the boys, and before you know it, you've got to try and reel everyone off. But everyone just rallies as a team. So whoever's preparing for a fight, you know for a fact that the rest of the team will rally behind. And like I say, fingers crossed, some of the amateur guys will have fights in the new year, or hopefully even end of this year. And when that does happen, even if, say, me, Lou, or Aaron don't have anything booked, you know, we'll be doing the exact same thing for them. So yeah, the gym's buzzing, but it's been a savage 2 months for sure.
I know we briefly sort of touched on it before, the trilogy as an event itself. Of course, you and Aaron both on it. How important do you think it is for Cage Warriors to have put this event on back-to-back shows, 3 nights, to make sure they can get as many of their contracted athletes out there and fighting again?
Yeah, I think it's the right thing to do, and I'm very happy that they did it. Like you say, it's not when you're, say, obviously as a promotion, their job is to promote fights. Our jobs is to fight, so it's not in anybody's best interests for us not to be competing. But I didn't look into it in too much detail, but it seems as if Graham really just grabbed the bull by the horns, took control of it, and then yeah, fair play to them.
I've got to touch as well on something you mentioned before there about possibly jumping the queue with a victory over Kingsley. I know I can't imagine you take 1 fight at a time. Sorry. If you do get your hand raised, have you got a path or a certain name in mind that you wouldn't mind sort of looking at?
It'll be one of the featherweights on the card. At the minute, I'm thinking about Paul Hughes, just because I think if you made a list of all the featherweights they're going to be fighting, I feel like he's probably the one outside of the one for the belt who's getting the biggest push. So I wouldn't mind slapping him about, I won't lie.
If we go back now to, I guess, before the match, I mean, you were only, 3 years into your MMA career, amateur, starting in 2017. How did you first get into combat sports, and like where did this whole journey start for you?
So my grandfather was a pro boxer. So to be honest, I got a really sporting family. My grandfather was a pro boxer. My uncle was a pro rugby player. My father was he played first class rugby before he went professional. So if it was professional at that point, he would have played pro as well. So I didn't really have too much of a choice. I was going to be doing something sporty. So growing up as a teenager, my or even younger than a teenager, my grandfather's attitude was, you're going to know how to fight to a point, just in terms of like looking after yourself. That was his attitude. And then obviously he never wanted me to actually fight. But when someone teaches you how to fight, you're most likely going to want to test it against someone. So growing up, I was doing a lot of boxing. I didn't actually compete that much because I was playing rugby as well. Like obviously at the time, my uncle was captain of Wales. So I had sort of one foot trying to be like my uncle, one foot trying to be like my grandfather. And then in the end, fighting won out. But MMA just gives me a buzz that boxing never did. Like I feel like most individual combat sports, boxing is kind of like a match, whereas I don't think anyone can really dispute that MMA is like a fight. And yeah, that's definitely the thing that gets me going the most.
MMA is completely different to boxing, to rugby. But for you, what is it like to have like a family who have walked a very similar sort of walk to you? They've sort of felt them nerves before they've went out for a game, or they felt the nerves before a boxing match. What's it like to have that support around you, literally since you started?
It's funny. It means the banter's good. It's literally Christmas Day. Everyone's chatting shit. We're compared. You can like honestly like at one point, not my uncle who played professional rugby, but his brother. He's a very competitive runner. So like one Christmas we're out running intervals against each other, seeing who can win. And yeah, it's literally like that. And anything, whatever we're doing, you just know we're gonna be bantering with each other, talking shit, trying to beat each other. So yeah, it's second nature.
Wales, of course, has a huge heritage in rugby. And I mean, if you look at the names coming up through the ranks at the minute, MMA could soon have a really big Welsh heritage as well. Just how good do you think Welsh MMA is right now?
Yeah, I think it's getting there for sure. And obviously you've got the 4 UFC guys who all conduct themselves great, to be fair. I think Jack Shaw in particular, because of his old man, spends a lot of time trying to promote the other guys in Wales rather than maybe just necessarily promoting himself. I'm not saying that the other guys do that, but just he seems to really push it. Then you've got Lou in Bellator as well. I think it's going from strength to strength, and it's only going to get stronger. I think when Mason beats Proctor now, he'll get signed as well. Oban's making waves. Aaron Khalid's going to get the job done. I'm going to get the job done. And yeah, and so if you went to any gym in Wales, guaranteed every single gym would have say 4 or 5 youngsters, and they'd all be saying that this is the next beast. So yeah, strength to strength.
I was going to actually ask you about that Mason Jones and the Proctor fight. I mean, it's the last fight. It's for that vacant title. I think every fighter on the sort of Cage Warriors roster has had a different opinion on how they think it's going to go, how they think it's going to play out. What's your prediction for
that? Mason stops him. I think like on face value, you take the size difference, probably the range difference, but Mason's never shown any trouble managing range. And I don't even think the weight difference is going to be that significant. He might not look like a big guy, but he is a big guy. I sparred with Mason quite a bit. And up to point, he's broke everyone. He's broken really quickly as well. So I think he's going to do the same thing.
This whole Cage Warriors all 3 nights, it will be behind closed doors. I'm not sure if you've sort of fought behind in them sort of circumstances before behind closed doors. Is it something that is going to bother you come fight night, or is it just one of those things?
Nah, just one of those things. Some of the coaches said just imagine that it's going to bother you. So if it doesn't bother you, it's a plus. And if it does bother you, that's what you're preparing for. But the honest answer is I just don't give a shit. Like a fight's a fight. Cage, ring, alley, whatever it is, I'm going to win.
So yeah. on fight night, what sort of Ben Ellis can we expect to see?
One who's bringing a lot of pressure. I think I'll bring a lot of pressure. I intend to break him, whether he breaks physically or mentally, either or. But like I say, I think it'll just be similar to what I've done in all the fights so far, applying a lot of pressure. And that'll be that. Whether I'm talking or not, we'll have to wait and see. I don't even know myself.
And finally, it's always my last question. I know some fighters aren't into giving predictions, so if not, that's completely fine. But can I get a prediction for you for next Friday?
I won't say when, but I'll stop him. I'll stop him. I think it'll be with ground and pound as well. Whether it comes from me taking him down and finishing him with ground and pound, or if I knock him down and finish him with ground and pound, just at some point I want to be on top of him, absolutely hammering him. So that's the plan.
Spot on. Ben, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having me on, mate. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Cheers.